So I want to do some myth busting. Let's start with the biggest one right off the bat.
Yes.
Gladiator battles always ended in death. True or false?
No, false. No, why would they? That makes no sense. You'd have to train somebody, feed somebody, make them famous, and then they die, because they tripped over their sandals and somebody stabbed them in the back. No, a fight to the death was the absolute exception, not the rule. It was a very rare event.
Okay, along with that, at the end of a battle, the emperor might give a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and that meant whether or not it was to the death. True or false?
No, at the end, the emperor would decide who won, or the editor, which is the person who put on the games, would decide who won. And the whole thing about thumbs is a misunderstanding because we have a term listed in which it says pollicis verso cum jubet occat in popularite, which means that the thumb was pressed and the signal was given. But we don't know what that means, a pressed thumb. So the reason we think it's a thumbs up is because there was a black and white movie called, I think, Gladiators and Madonnas. I think it's a 1920s movie. And in that movie, the director decided that if this was good, this was bad, because this has always been good. And it's actually an ancient symbol. I'm holding a thumb up. And so people who make movies work in the movie industry. Those movies inspired people who made, like Kubrick, who made Spartacus and kept the thumbs up and thumbs down. And that generation was Ridley Scott's generation, who grew up watching Kubrick and then made Gladiator. And guess what they did? Thumbs up or thumbs down. But the likelihood is that a thumb was pressed into the fist, because we have a piece of terracotta that shows an editor pressing his thumb. And so the thumb down might have been they didn't win or death, but we're not sure. But the movies do a good job of confounding it.
Okay, next one. A gladiator could be so awesome he was granted freedom.
Yes, that's why slave gladiators were such good gladiators. They had an incentive. They could win their freedom. They could physically win their freedom. Although there are times that a freedom was granted. We know that freedom was granted and the gladiators refused and said, "Why would I? I am the toast of the empire. What would I do with freedom?" There's a great, I think, misunderstanding of, again, it probably goes back to the question you asked about gladiators. What is a gladiator? Because they did have condemned criminals that fought to the death. So these people that fought to the death tended to be people who were basically condemned to death. And they were not given training and they were not, wearing fancy armor, but they're not gladiators. I think later what happens is, especially Christian writers, confound what are called noxai, which are prisoners of war or criminals condemned to death, professional gladiators and professional hunters, the bestiarii. And they kind of shove them together. And what that does is creates the image we have of gladiators. If you ask anybody, who are poor slaves thrown in the arena, made to fight animals and people to death for the joy of the Romans. And they're not. They're three very distinct classes of different things. A gladiator, when I talk about a gladiator, I'm talking about a professional, top-of-the-range athlete.
The last one goes along with what you just said. Gladiators fought animals in the arena.
No, hunters fought animals in the arena. They were professional hunters, and they tended to actually be professional hunters or hunters by trade from different parts of the empire that then were so exceptional they were brought into the arena. For the Romans, the arena was everything. It's funny how much we take for granted what we have. We can sit on a couch and we can travel any part of the world. We can see any scene we want because we have television. We have not only television, now we have devices that do that let us see the world through them. But 2,000 years ago, the only thing you had was the Colosseum to enter into that world. And the Colosseum was a way for a Roman who didn't travel very much to see the rest of the known world. But also it kept people in check, because when you saw a lion, lions are not native to Rome. They don't roam around the city. But there was one in the middle of the city. And yet, in the same way we voyeuristically sit on a couch and voyeuristically watch people fight to the death or go on epic adventures without actually being in danger, so too was a Roman sitting in the Colosseum comfortably on a cushion with his friends, having, food and wine and not really being a danger, but sensing that danger and realizing that there was a danger outside. But then there was the heroic hunter who fought. How brave. A lion, a panther, a bear, and then killed them right in front of you. And it was to inspire you. And in the same way that there was two guys wearing helmets, fighting with these incredibly dangerous weapons, but they stared at death at the face. They weren't afraid of it. So there was always the possibility that a gladiator could die from a wound, because they were fighting with weapons after all, from infection, but they still did it. And how, inspirational that was to a Roman.